Hi, I'm Shazad here and I hope you're doing good. In this video, I will talk about Windows Presentation Foundation styles. We will see what does the style mean in Windows Presentation Foundation, how we can make use of it, and we'll also discuss the advantages or any benefits that we can gain by using these styles in WPF. Before we go into this topic, let's talk a little bit about designing the UI. The user interface is very critical part of any software. Now, software is like taking some inputs from the user. In most of the cases, not necessarily in all cases, but in most of the cases, software interacts with the user, gets some inputs, process them, and gives some outputs. Now, to take these inputs, we usually don't design or don't develop everything from scratch. Like if the user needs to add a name, age, or any other kind of data, we do not develop these kind of facilities from scratch. Although it is possible to develop something where user can type it in the age, name, or anything, but we don't do that. And to facilitate the designing of these kind of user interfaces, most of the platforms that we have been using for last many years, they provide a set of user controls. For example, in Visual Basic, the user controls were there. In Visual C++, we have seen these controls. The controls I meant, like the text box where user can type in some text. Then there are buttons, then there are combo boxes, radio buttons, labels, and some other controls as well. These controls have been there in almost all the frameworks that we have been using for last many years to develop the user interfaces. Now, the use of these controls is very easy. We have a form, a layout, or a canvas in different platforms. What we do, we are given with a set of built-in user controls. We decide which control do we want to use. If there is a selection, we may take a radio button or a checkbox. If there is some data to enter or to display, we might use a label or a text box. If there is a list of items that we want to display, then we might use a tree control, a list box, or if there is data to display, we can use some grid kind of controls. What the use is very simple. We take the control, drop it on the form, and then set some of its properties. Now, these properties are important to these controls. Using these properties, we can customize these controls to fit our requirements. And these properties are, some of the common properties are like, what is the background color of the control, what is the font color of the control, what font the control will use, what is the font size, font style, what is the width of the control, and what is the location or position of the control on the form or on the canvas. Now, these are very basic and common properties for most of these controls. And if we have a form or a canvas, and we have say 20 to 30 different controls, and these 20 to 30 different controls may include some labels, some text boxes, some buttons, radio buttons, check boxes, combo boxes, some 1 or 2 data grids. Now, all these 20 to 30 controls, we have to set these basic properties, like what is the size of the control, what is its location, the font color, font size. For each control, we have to set these properties. In old, like Visual Basic, C++, or even in C# and .NET, we used to select that control. Then on the property grid, we used to go and set all these properties. And in the property grid, we could see all the properties that this control has. For example, the name of the control, font related properties, size related properties. We could set the property values, and then we could see the effect of these property values on the form where the control is visible. When we talk about WPF, we still have the property a window to set the control to set the values of these properties, but eventually all these properties go into the XAML file. Now here we have the option. Now in WPF we have the option, either we use the property grid, property window, or we go and edit or add these properties and their values directly into the XAML file. In WPF, obviously these controls are flexible and more advanced than the other platforms that I have mentioned. But because we are talking about the XAML file, and in XAML file we obviously we write the name of the control, and which is in the XML form, and then within that XML node we set these properties as most of the time they are the attributes, XML attributes with certain values. Now if we have 20 or 30 controls on a form, that means each of the control has to be added to the XAML file as an XML node, and within each XML node we need to write its XML attribute like background, then its value, foreground, then its value, width, height, and then corresponding values. And when we have say 20 controls, and each control, and for each control we have to set maybe 5 to 7 properties at least, or maybe up to 10 properties at least. That means each XML node is having 10 attributes with their values. So that means the XAML file will become bigger, and there will be a point when the XAML file will become complex and not easy to manage. Now the style can give us a lot of advantage in this kind of situation. What we can do, what does a style mean in WPF? A style in WPF mean that a group of common properties along with their values, and that group is given a name. So a style is a combination of the control properties with their corresponding values. So we can design a style and give a name to that style, and then when we declare or use the controls in XAML file, we can refer these styles into the control. So instead of giving each control 7 or 10 properties, we just refer the style name, and then the control goes to the style and picks up all those common properties that we need to set there. So the advantage we can gain here is like, out of now we are talking about 20 or 30 user controls on the form, and each of these control is having certain basic properties like foreground, background, width, height, and font or font size, etc. Say these 5 properties are common to these 20 controls. So we make a style in which we set the value of these 5 properties, and then when we declare or use the control, we just mention the style with each control. That means we don't need to set all these 5 properties for all of the 20 controls. And obviously there will be some properties that will be specific to each control that might not be common amongst all of them. So those specific properties we can set individually to all the controls, but all the common properties can go into the style that we will declare somewhere within the XAML file as a resource. And then all these controls can refer to this style and make use of those common properties. So that means we can have less code in the XAML file, more clean and more manageable code. And other than that, there is a common place where we are setting all these common properties. So if these controls, we decide, oh, okay, we want to change the background of all these controls, if we have this defined a style, then we don't need to go and change these this background for each individual control. Just go to the style, change the value of that property in the style, and it will be effective for all these controls. Okay, now we will use the Visual Studio and we'll see how can we make style and make use of this style into different controls. So let's open a new project. Styles in WPF application. So we will get a control, a form with the default layout control set as grid. I will put few columns in the grid. And then let's have some rows. Row definitions, and we put few rows. And then we put some controls. Say we want to make a make a search panel on top of this window, and in this search panel we put one or two text boxes where user can put something that can search or kind of filter values, and then a few buttons. So what we can do, we can put a stack panel, and we can say orientation we say vertical, and we stick this stack panel to grid dot row 0 and then grid dot column 0 and grid dot column span equals to 3. So this will go across all the 3 columns. Okay, then within this span we can say first we can apply the label control, and say label control we want its width 50, okay, height 30, and background color we say it's white, and foreground color black, border brush we say it's green or say red, and then font size equal to 12. Okay, and then we say name. Okay, so the next control we put is a text box, so user can type a. Now the text box, say most of these common properties are same. So what I will do, I will put copy and paste all this stuff here, and the only thing I will increase is say this is 150. Okay. And then I want to put another label, so I will copy this label, everything is same, and then I will say select, so the name, and then we will say select city. Okay, and after the city we can show a combo box, So the user has a combo box which the user can use to select the city. So combo box, and say combo box also has the similar basic properties. Okay, and again I will increase its width here to 150 maybe, and then within here we can give one city for testing, and after the combo box we can put a button. Button is search button. So after adding these values we can say user can press the search button, and then pressing the search button these filters should apply and user should see the relevant data. Now we don't need button with this, so length width I set the width to 50 for the button, and maybe we can have another button with a reset. Okay, reset. Now if I run my window or my project, I will see here I can type the name David, and city I can select London. I can press search or reset. So this is the layout. Now imagine that in this layout I want to change the background or foreground or anything. So if we want to change the background or the font color, for example we change the font foreground color from black to light blue. So what I need to do then, I need to go and change this black to light blue at all the controls which I'm using, and at the moment I have only few controls, 5-6 controls. So that means I need to change for all these controls individually. So you see I have this light blue, but light blue doesn't good, so maybe we go for blue. So you see our form is very small, few controls, but still we can see lot of XAML here. Now imagine this form having 20 or 30 more controls and all these basic properties, and then along with these basic properties we have to add some specific properties to each control as well. So that will make this XAML complex, not easy to manage, not readable, and also the changes you can see, you can imagine. In fact you've seen here like just changing one property, and then obviously you want to give the same look and feel for all the controls within an application. So that means if we decide to change the foreground or background, that means we have to change it for all the controls. And if we are setting these properties individually for all the controls, that means going through all the XAML files and changing it for all the controls. That's not only time consuming, but also there are chances of errors. So now here comes the beauty of the style. What we can do, we can select these basic, for example width, height, background, foreground, border, brush, font size. These are basic and common properties that are there in most of the controls. So we pick up all these properties, and then we set the style. We say style, and we can maybe use a static style, and we can say my control style. That's it. So now if we define all these properties that were there in this control into a style somewhere with the name of my control style, then when this label box is rendered, it will go look for that particular style, look for the properties that are mentioned in that style, and will apply all those properties onto this control. By apply mean it will try to apply. Now this point is very important. Within a style we can have maybe 10 properties. Now if this label control doesn't have 5 properties, that or doesn't have all the 10 properties applicable to label control, then the properties that are not applicable to the label controls will be ignored. The properties that are applicable to the label controls will be applied. So it's quite flexible here. It won't give any error. Now how can we define a style? So we go somewhere here and within the grid we can define our style. So we can say grid dot resources, and within the resource we can say style, and style has a name and we can give a name by using a key. So I set my control style. Now this is the style, and within the style how can I set the properties? I will use the setter node and within the setter node I will say property, and property say its width, and then so the setter is the property and value pair. Width and then value, we know the width of the control, the standard width of the control, we say it's 50, and then we have another property which is called width and height, and value of the height is 30. Okay, then we define other property. Property it's foreground, and value is okay, foreground is red, and okay, so we will see what's from here. Setter property background, and value of the background is white, and then we have setter and property name is what was property name? So I have all this here. So okay, background, foreground, and border brush. So border brush and its value was red. Okay, and then we have setter property name is font size, and value is 12. Okay, so now we have defined all these properties here. What is with the foreground? Okay, one thing I will do, I will say control dot width, or apply control dot width to all these properties. Okay, now I have the properties. I have the name of the style, and then I have the properties that are common against my controls. So foreground, width, height, background, border brush. If I want to add more properties in the style, I can add as many properties as I want. And now I have this style which is defined as the resources within this grid, and I can apply this style within these controls. So see, what we need to do is now we need to replace all these properties and their values by mentioning this style or by referring this style, and you will see it is automatically getting the relevant properties. So when I apply this, you can see the changes happening in my controls. See, it's changing. I think I have mentioned the width and the height. Okay, so let's see why the width and the height are not. So width is 50 and control height is 30. Wow, so what's wrong with it? Okay, so if I say 100, 50, 30. Okay, that's fine. So make this 50 and height is 30. Okay, that's fine. So now because we have our style which says width should be 50 and height should be 30. So now these attributes are same for all the controls, but we know our label here is fine for the 50 width, and text box is not fine. We should enlarge the text box. Combo box we again need to enlarge it. Buttons are fine. So you see all the common properties are applied, but if we want to override some specific property, we can do that. So say within this text box, if I want to increase its width, I will say width and 150, okay, or I will say 100. So now this width is overridden. Yes, it will try to go first, check the width from style, but then it will see, oh, width is mentioned specifically for this control here, so it will apply the control's own width, not the style. So we can override the properties which are even mentioned in the style and of course the other properties which are not mentioned in the style can be applied here too. For example, you can apply caret brush as well within this text box, or any of these properties which are not in the control, they can be applied here. Okay, and now obviously we need to increase the width of this combo box as well. So within the combo box I will say width equals 100 again. Okay, now if for the reset button we have set the background, but if we want to change the background for the reset button, I can change it. So okay, so we can override the properties of the style within the controls as well. So now if I run my application, you can see here I can press. So this is the advantage of the styles, like when we can group together all the common properties and then refer the style to these controls where these common properties are being used. And of course, less code, clean code, more manageable, changes are easy. For example, if we later decide to change the foreground color in some other than red, so we say foreground is black and background color is light blue, so that's it. And then border brush we say light cyan, cyan. And now if I run my application, you will see the changes applied. Okay, so you can see, having a style, we can have all these common properties to all these control and one place where they can be control, modified and set with ease, and they will save a lot of time, easy to manage. The other advantage of using the style is that we can standardize. For example, if we say within this application all our search panel will look like this, they will have this background, this kind of font, and this kind of foreground or any other style, then we can say yes, this is the style that will be used by all our search panels, all our controls that are present in the search panel. And then we can maybe define another style which will be used by all the data grids that will be present within a certain user interface or within a project. So we can start thinking and organizing our user interfaces into styles. Okay, so far we have defined a style and used it, and this style contains some of the basic properties of these controls. But when we think about controls, controls are of different kinds. Some controls are used to take inputs and outputs from the user. Other controls are used to display a large amount of data. Then there are button and radio box and checkbox like controls. That means there will be certain properties that will be common and will be present amongst all the controls. For example, background color, foreground color, the font or the font size. But then there will be set of properties which will be applicable to buttons only. For example, click style, which is applicable maybe for buttons and checkboxes or radio buttons. And then there will be certain properties, for example, caret size or caret font, caret color, etc. They are applicable where the user will type in something, so the caret shows up. And then there will be certain properties, for example, alternate row colors, which is applicable to grids or list boxes or maybe tree controls. So how can we manage these kind of settings into styles? The way to deal with this kind of situation is, and maybe another situation could be like, we want to define 2 or 3 properties into a basic style which is quite generic, so that that style can be applied to any of the control. Then we can come up with certain specific styles which could be based on, because these properties are applicable to different kind of controls. For example, the basic style could be, for example, my basic style that contains font, width, height, and then there could be another style which is applicable to buttons maybe, or to certain controls under a certain situation. For example, we can say key, my control style with bold font. So what I have to do is, now obviously when I apply this style, so I want to put some, I have mentioned only with bold, so just to give an example smaller, but there will be certain cases like when I want to apply this style, that might mean like apply all these properties as it is here, and then apply an other additional properties which I can say set property and its value, and this property could be control dot font weight, and I can say bold, like apply the bold font weight. Let me put this spelling. So now if I apply this style, that means it will apply all these properties as we have mentioned them in the first style, and along with these properties there is an additional property which is like make the font bold. So if I want to apply this on the search button, this is my search button, and you can see the changes are applied. So all the other properties are as it is for rest of the controls, but the font size has become bold. Now how to organize it in a better way? Why I have to repeat all these properties here? So think of the classes, like we have a base class, then a derived class. So all the common properties or the common attributes of all the derived classes go into the base class. So what I should do here is to find out a way so that when I'm defining this style, I refer or derive this style from uh, from my first, which is quite basic and generic style. So what is the option I have? So it's very easy. I say based on. So in class we say derive from, or that is a base class, or that is a super class, but over here I will say based on. And when I say based on, I will say use this static resource my control style, and that's it. So that will automatically pick all the properties that are in this my control style, and all the additional properties are defined here. So okay, so there is a bug, it's not showing up correctly here, but when I run this project it's fine. So it's bold and all rest is the same. So we can even organize the styles, and we can use one style and refer it to another style, so that we can make a proper hierarchy. And we can use this kind of we can use this feature to separate out maybe the styles which are specific to different kind of controls. Like we can define a base group of properties within this style, and then all the specific styles to button can go into another maybe derived or maybe more customized style for buttons, and other style which is more customized for text boxes, then another style which is more specific or more customized to data grids or other controls. And not only this, we can have styles to deal with certain kind of special situations. For example, we can have a style with all these basic properties, and then something like, oh, if the mouse is clicked, then change this background to that background. So these kind of things can be added to those styles as well. Anyway, in short, we have seen these styles, and they are much more effective, flexible and quite helpful in organizing our code. They help us manage the code properly. The code is clean, more manageable, more readable, and obviously we can do more with less amount of code. And then we have one place where we can control all these values of most of the controls that are used within our application. And on top of all, we can enforce our UIs for all our applications. As I said, if we want like all the data grids or the grids that we will use within our projects, if we say here is a style, we should use this style to all the grids. That's it. All our UIs, all our grids will be consistent because they all use the same style that is mentioned at one place. And if we want to change that consistent UI, some of the properties of that consistent UI, we just need to go to that style, change those specific properties, and that's it. They will be applicable to whole of all the forms within that application or the UI. Okay, in the next session we will have a look at some other features of maybe style or some other WPF features. So let's see what we discuss in the next